Hi, I'm Robyn Sean Peterson, and I'm Artist of the Night. Art is like the footprints that are left behind as the soul kind of passes through time. And that's how we know through artwork the history of the world, basically. It's what's left for us to be able to know what people's experience was throughout time.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Artist of the Night. I am joined here today by Mr. Robyn Sean Peterson. Robyn is a very, very interesting and unique artist. He works primarily in collage, and his collages are on a huge scale and display an enormous amount of intricacy, detail, and depth and meaning. Robyn, how are you today?
I'm really good. It's good to see your face here. It's been such a long time.
I know it's been a long time. It's great to see you. Great to see you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here. So first of all, Robyn, if you don't mind, maybe just giving us a little background on how you got into art.
Well, just like all kids, right? You just start doing it as a natural process. I mean, it's just a life flow. You're just wanting to express, and you're excited by everything, and you're a natural experimenter. And, as we proceed in ages and we get more input from the outside world, some of that may fall by the wayside or may get channeled into other interests that you have. My interest in art stayed for quite a few years when I was a kid. And when I was in grade school, I used to watch a TV show on Sunday mornings, which was called John Nagy's Learn to Draw. And he was the first artist I had seen it all. And you'd go and sit in front of the TV and he'd draw stuff and you draw that back and forth. He was the first bohemian I'd ever seen. He had a goatee beard and he had a plaid flannel shirt on and the whole thing. And I thought, well, that's really pretty cool. So anyway, I would follow his stuff on Sunday mornings. And then when I would go to school during the week, I went to a parochial school. The nun who was our teacher, when we'd get to art, she knew that she couldn't draw. So she had noticed that I could draw pretty well. So she would have me come up and draw out a figure or landscape thing on the chalkboard and bring it up to date. Excuse me, bring it up to date each day, because she would have one of the kids come in after school and erase off. So I had to, at the beginning of class, start as fast as I could to bring it up to speed. And then we would continue, right? But anyway, that really just started to form a sense of identity for me about being an artist. However, at one point I got physically ill and was gone from school for a week. And when I came back to school, there was a new kid that was in the class. And when it came time to do the art, I started to, get up and walk up to the front. And the teacher just said, no, you don't have to do that. Fred's gonna teach this. And so without explanation, this was like a big shock for me as a little kid. I mean, I was really forming my identity. And what happened out of that was I lost my ability to draw completely. And no matter what I tried to do, I could not get it back. Something had happened inside. And so if it weren't for, thank God for the Beatles coming along and the music thing, of which I just kind of switched into that. And that kind of carried me along and kind of helped me distract from that particular sense of loss of this amazing thing that I was starting to do. And so it was like decades in my life before I ever got around to trying it again. It's not a love that I have anymore. I mean, that's been lost. But along the way, then I switched over and started spontaneous do collage work.
That's really interesting. It's really just to think that with proper encouragement and maybe a proper environment, things might have been a different sense, and just having been basically kind of shut down in that sense. And that really did discourage you.
Yeah, some part of my psyche just took that shock and just like shut it off, that particular current of energy. And like I say, it was like decades. I mean, I lived with friends who were like artists, so they were all doing it. I was surrounded by that, as I got older and stuff. And I was surrounded by musicians and that worked at a record shop. I mean, just completely switched into music being a focus of feeding me at all. But there was always in the back of my mind, it's like, well, what happened to that form of creativity? Where is my creativity?
Mhm. Yeah. So do you think it was just kind of sitting dormant inside? Does that seem accurate?
Yes, it's actually, unless you're a person who in your life is in some way exercising whatever unique creativity that you have. And I mean, there's a full spectrum, anything from you're good at cooking, or you're good at listening to an engine on a car and recognizing what needs to be done, or improvising on something, or you're somebody who draws or paints or does computer graphics or whatever. There are times and there are situations where it does go dormant, and sometimes it's because of like something that happens in your life, but other times it's a part of a cycle that creativity goes through. I really learned a lot about this. And so there are times when the juice goes down into the ground, into the roots, and it hibernates in there. And what you have to do is figure out, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Okay, if that's not available to me. And a couple of things that I've kind of noticed is sometimes it's time that I need to take care of certain other aspects of my life. And that's why it's not coming up, because I would definitely just immediately go in that direction, just like a magnet, just pull me right over there. And I'm like into that. But lots of times there are just other issues about your life and things that you need to do or attend to. And then the other thing is sometimes you need to you need to like reprioritize things. And instead of being on the output channel, you need to be on the input channel. Your soul, your deeper being is saying, okay, feed me with something new here. And so it might be like reading books or a chance to travel somewhere. It might be just trying some other type of endeavor that you're really interested in, and just take that in and then just let your being digest. Now, if you're somebody who already has some kind of an artistic discipline in particular, not having the faucet turned on, the spigot turned on, and being in that flow is no excuse for not like getting your pad and pencil out and just practicing, right? Because it's a type of muscle. And if you let it go limp, you let it go and get weak, then when it's time and the spigot turns on again, you're starting below your baseline because you haven't kept. It's just like keeping your muscles fit, right? You couldn't run a marathon or lift a bunch of weights if you haven't kept, up with just the basic things that you need to do to keep that toned for yourself.
I can 100% relate to everything you just said and have absolutely experienced it myself. And yeah, that's great. Thank you for articulating that, because that really is, it happened. I think it probably, as you said, I think it happens to most creative people and in most situations. And it is tricky, because I think, I can also speak from experience, putting yourself in that mindset of like, I got to do and I got to produce and I got to keep working on stuff. And if you're at that point where it's time to get some input, or you need, you've already kind of expressed everything you need to at that point in time, and you need time to kind of refill the fuel source as it is to kind of be able to do it, light another fire. It's really important to be able to listen to yourself and pay attention. So thank you for saying that. That is absolutely very insightful.
And on the psychological level, there's like a myth, the myth of Persephone from Greek culture, ancient Greek culture. And that myth is actually about how it's a metaphor for how the juice gets pulled down into the underworld, and there's a whole other reality or sources that are in there. And so in the myth, she is taken down into the underworld by Hades, the god of the underworld, who wants her to be his paramour. And she stays down there and she talks to the dead. So she's learning all these different stories and all this information about how to navigate in the dark, right? Mm-hmm. And then at a certain time, there's an agreement between Hades and her and Persephone's mother that 6 months out of the year she'll come up into the upper world, okay, but at the end of that 6 month cycle, she'll go down into the underworld in the dark. So it's this balancing between, it's that flow of that energy going back and forth. And when you don't know about this cycle for creativity and its flow of energy, it can be very depressing. I mean, it can be depressing, especially if you are a person who is a professional creative, where you're expected to deliver and deliver and deliver on cue. That can cause a tremendous amount of distress about what to do. So for people that might be a part of your audience who are professional creatives, my suggestion is during the time when you have creative flow, just write down as many cues as you get so that when the time closes, when that juice shuts down and you're not in that movement, so you can be taken along by it, right? Mm-hmm. You can go to those notes that you made and you'll have ideas so that when you're called upon, okay, what do you got, or whatever, you're not like completely blank and you're completely fumbling, But the other side is that for people who are not professional creatives, they might be hobbyists or people who are thinking about wanting to try some form of creativity or artistic endeavor in particular. It's good to know about these things because otherwise they'll think there's something wrong with themselves, where it's just a natural phenomena and has been forever.
So yes, this is a piece that's called The Elder. It took me 6 months to make. There's between 900 and 1,000 small fragments that I used to do this. Again, because everything's intuitive in terms of my process and I don't know what I'm making. It's a process of just like building and building and building and building, and sometimes taking things back down, taking things out and replacing them. But especially in these areas here, there are just in like right here, that's probably 200 or more pieces right here. But the substrata here was from, this green part was from an old sample of some material from an old couch that I found in an old thrift store. And I went in and had the piece Xeroxed a few times in color, and then and make multiple copies of it. And then I cut those copies out and started to kind of arrange them in these like shapes that fan out from here. And then there was another, like these brown areas, there was another old fabric sample that I found, and it was slightly a different color. So when I went into the copy place, I had them like tweak it a little bit in terms of turning the red down on it so it gave it more of a brownish color. And I had like probably 25, 30 copies of this done. And then I just started to cut them up, cut out different parts of that to make these different shapes. So when I glued those down on here, I stacked them on top of each other, so these parts started to like come up off of the surface here. And then these areas here, I found these eyes. These eyes are actually made out of like 4 different parts of pictures of different eyes. It's really important to me not only what shape the eye is, so I might use a picture of an eye, but I don't like the color of it, and so I might find something that changes the color, but then I also would have to have the light coming in a certain direction to give it a certain feel. So there might be 3 different pieces of source material just to create one of the eyes. After I got those in place, it was trying to find out how to bring the nose and the mouth into kind of a union or communion with the eyes here, where this kind of goldish color is. But anyway, after testing out some more source material, I was finally able to get these in the color that I wanted them. And then once I got them into position, then I was able to like finish out stacking all these pieces on top. These areas here that are really elevated, they're like sculpture. Those, they were just as flat as a board, and they just had just individual pieces like laid down there. And it was, again, it's this intuitive thing of just like, okay, keep cutting out, keep gluing, keep adding on until it was able to like build it up to a certain level. So you got bone structure, the brow area, and then the beard around the mouth. So give it more of a 3-dimensional look to it. Yes, this took 6 months to do just this one particular piece.
And it sounds like your process really is kind of the definition of using your intuition, and it is, you don't have that end goal set, so you are just kind of letting the process unfold naturally, and then it kind of takes you, and then you are willing to trust it and kind of take that leap and just let it and follow it to wherever it takes you.
Yeah, it took a lot of time for me to be able to let go of it has to be a certain way at all. And I was lucky because a person that I respected, who was a teacher at one of the universities in the Bay Area, happened to say to me, when I showed him a piece, he said to me, "You don't need to learn how to draw. I mean, here it is right here. Okay, you got it, you know." And he just said, "Don't let go of the judgment thing," right? So another thing that I'd like to address is how voices come up inside of your head when you're trying to do some of this creative stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Doubts, judgments, fears, all that kind of stuff. And that's always going to be there, but it's just that you have to just like ignore it. I mean, it will intervene and try and go, "Oh, no, this is a better idea here, try and do this," right? Mm-hmm. And because all of us have different sub-personalities and different parts of ourselves, they all have an opinion. So it can get to be like there's a frat house of all these different voices and urges that are inside of you. And it's like how to like separate yourself out from that, and just, they'll keep going, but just stay right there. And for me, my process is like 99.9% intuitive. And then the rest is that other small percentage will equally weigh on a scale, because that involves all the work of having to assemble things and correct things as you go along. Yeah, I just really think that's really important for people to know.
High Priest was actually a piece of work that I started on initially probably about 8 years ago, just with the area that's like the head. Periodically, I would bring it back out again, and then I would start adding more pieces onto the body. It's a very different type of an image, although it has again, another archetypal look. There's adornments all over. But the thing that's really unique about it is that it's a biomechanical being. You look and the eyes have some kind of human or biological form to them, but the rest of it has a mechanical look to it. The hands are like a mechanical type hands that are to it. The metal jaw and head area, it's those two weird things that are kind of merged together. I didn't know what the title would be for it. The further that I started to get along with it, the name High Priest came. When technology reaches a state of autonomy and some develops higher levels of consciousness, will it become self-reflective, or will it form its own kind of religion of some form at all? So it had this kind of mystique for me in that way. And I stayed up so many nights. I mean, I was working 2 jobs, and the second job I was working at night. I'd get home at 12:30. My partner Leon was already asleep, and I would come home and I would go down and I would like work on this, and I was bent over the table at that angle for like hours on end, sometimes moving one piece back and forth and just having this feeling like it's not in the right place. And then I accidentally bumped the table, and I realized one of the other pieces moved, that what I was trying to be shown was it was this piece over here that needed to be moved. And as soon as I moved that into place, this like real irritated feeling in my body and my mind, it calmed down. So there was this again, this thing about the inner muse, this like other part of me that's much more intelligent, much in terms of creativity, that's there, and it's trying to help me to pick up the image that it's trying to show me. This book called The War of Art, this is one of the most important companions that anybody who's going to do any kind of creative endeavor, whether it's specifically artistic or any other form, this book is like an absolute companion to have, because it addresses every kind of thought pattern, every kind of emotional reaction that tries to get in your way of being able to gain success for yourself and satisfaction from the creative work that you're trying to do in some form or another. And it addresses, no matter if you're already a consummate professional, there's still stuff that you have to work out and that comes up for you inside during your creative process. And this gem right here, this will just address everything. It shows you exactly how your mind thinks, how your emotions react, and it's universal to any kind of creative endeavor that people get involved with. It helps to confirm that you are not the only one who is experiencing this. There's not something wrong with you at all. It's just you need to like understand what's at play for you. So this is like a really inexpensive book, and especially for somebody who's like, again, who's maybe older, who's never given themselves a chance, get a copy of this and keep it as your companion. And it will tell you a lot about just how to deal with life. It's beautiful and it's creative. And the person who wrote it gives all loads of examples of their personal struggle with certain things, and then passes on the wisdom that they learned about that.
Okay. And also to those who are watching, you can also come to the library, I would imagine, and be able to find that with your library card too. I think that in that description, that brings up a pretty interesting point that, as you said, everything, the situations that you run into are universal. And so it is a common thing that everybody kind of hits. And so do you think that speaks to the universality of creativity?
Oh, I think it's synonymous with it. I mean, it's just, again, it's a natural thing that occurs, right? So it's part and parcel to every person. That's there. This might lead in a segue in a little bit to how people's creative processes are very, very different, and they're very, very specific to each person. Just like there's certain foods or flavors that you have a particular palate for, and other ones that you don't like at all, or when you eat them, they don't make you feel the nutrition from it that your body needs. But some people, their creative process, I'm just going to use, say, someone who's a artist, who's a painter, or who draws, let's say. One person might be inspired by looking at something and trying to recreate that in as much detail as they possibly can. They're outer directed in that way. Somebody else might get a lot of their inspiration from another art form, like, say, music. Some might get the inspiration through like a friend who's encouraging or guiding. So it might come from a film, something like that. And other people, and I'm one of them, and it took me a long time to like try and accept this, is all my muse is internal, does not use the outer world as a reference at all. So whenever I sit down to work, I don't know what I'm going to do at all. And it just ends up starting with, for me, one or two random pieces of something that I'm drawn to out of hundreds of thousands of little pieces of images that I have in boxes everywhere in the garage. And for some reason, I'm guided to that box, and I'll like pull out something. Let's say it's an eye. I have no idea what that's going to be, but I just kind of follow this like intuitive feeling again, right? Rather than looking at something that's outward and you know exactly what you're trying to reference, to copy at all.
So thank you so much, Robyn, for talking with me today. It's been a fascinating, enlightening, interesting journey, not only through your artwork, but just through philosophy and just the really the tip of the iceberg that it represents as far as the psyche and the unconscious, and the interconnectedness that we all experience as human beings. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today and articulating all this.
And thank you so much. Thank you to your staff of everybody making this possible. This is a real treat, opportunity to be able to speak to a much larger audience that I'll probably never meet most in person at all. And I just hope that whatever the content was that we discussed, that at least some part of it will be something that will be like helpful or inspiring in some way to your viewers.
I have no doubt that anybody that watches, most people that watch this are going to be absolutely inspired. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. And with that concludes this episode of Artist of the Night with Mr. Robyn Sean Peterson. Thank you all for watching. And I hope you all have a pleasant evening or day. Thanks.
So with this picture, what I'm interested in is this part in the center right here, not the rest of the image. Okay. Now, the first thing that's kind of coming intuitively is like this is a mouth that's there. Okay. Now, if you just or somebody were casually looking through this magazine, and you're looking at this piece of pottery, it would just look like it's some kind of a design that's on the pottery. But for me, this is potential for lips on something, or it might turn into something else completely different. But that's the initial kind of thing that occurs to me.
All right, can you take that and put on your like hold it to your lips?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get that close up.
So.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.